Alright, welcome back. Now in the last video we imported all the libraries we need and we set up basically the environment, and I already told you that we want to use one specific dataset from this datasets which are available in the TensorFlow datasets option here. So let me actually get rid of the hash sign and run it again, so you can see that basically what we want to use. We want to use this one here, this rock, paper, scissors here. Okay. So alright, this is a dataset we want to have. So to get this dataset and at first get some information about the dataset, what we could do is we can use then a new code cell here. And by the way, if you hover over it, you can see you can also type in Control B here just to create a new code cell if you don't want to click on here. You can also do that. There are also shortcuts available in Google Colab. Okay. So alright, this is the cell. And now we define a builder. It's called a builder. So why do I find the builder? Of course, you can name it differently, but you see that here it's also called list builders. That is why I want to use this builder name here. So if I scroll down, let me just go down here, and let's go here and say builder here. In this case, the builder, just to get some information. Builder, of course, I need to spell it correctly. Builder is equal to, and I'll say TFDS for TensorFlow dataset scan dot builder. Okay, builder. And now you need to put in basically the dataset which you want to use from TensorFlow datasets. And in our case, it will be rock, paper, scissors. So in this case, I simply type in rock, underscore, paper, underscore, scissors. Okay, scissors. And please be aware that you need to spell it here exactly the way it appears here. Okay, so if you scroll up here, rock, underscore, paper, underscore, scissors. So if you want to refer a different dataset here, please make sure that you spell it correctly using, for instance, this underscore and so on. Okay. Alright, so that is basically the dataset we want to use, and we create this builder just to get some information. And if we run this, for instance, like that, I could say stored in the info variable, so info variable like that, and say info is equal to builder.info. Okay, so there's an info attribute. You can, and if we take a look at it, if you type in info here, info like that, and you run it, you get some information about the dataset. Okay, just a second. Now it's running it, and now you can see it. Here, it's a TensorFlow core dataset info. The name is rock, paper, scissors. The version is here described, as well as here the homepage where this dataset is available, and also some information about the image and the labels. We said before, it's an image classification task, so there are images with this specific shape, 300 by 300 pixels, 3 color channels currently. We will reduce that to 1, but we'll see that in a moment. And there's also the class label. And the class labels here, basically there are 3 classes. Either it's a rock, it's a paper, or it's a scissor, right? That's the game. There are only 3 options available. And you also get some information about here the total number of examples. So what's the dataset look like, how many images are there, and so on. Also the splits. There's a test split as well as a train split, and here supervised keys, and so on. Also the author, and so on, right? And also here the year information when this dataset was created. And again, so this info really, or this builder, TF list builder, simply takes a look at the dataset and gives you information. Okay, and you can run this and just to give some more insight, get some more insights in the dataset itself. Okay, so let me actually then go to a new line here. We created our information here, and now what we want to do here is really we want to prepare our dataset. And to do this, of course, we need to load this dataset at first, and we're going to load it in a train dataset as well as a test dataset. So I simply say in this case dataset train. So let's call it ds for dataset and call it train underscore. So ds train is equal to, and all you need to do now is you again refer to the TensorFlow dataset option here and simply type in .load. So from this class here, we want to load. Now you specify the name. You can see it here. That's also a great thing. You also got here a preview what you need to specify. So what kind of TensorFlow dataset do you want to load? For us, it will be rock, paper, scissors, and then you also can define what kind of split it is. So split basically refers to, is it the training split or is it the test split? And you can also see there are a few additional informations. If you want to configure them, you can do that. Otherwise, of course, leave them empty, because you can see they all got default values like none here in this case, most of them, of course. Okay, so what we want to do is, again, I'm referring to the name attribute here and say name is equal to, and I'll specify again, rock, paper, scissors. Okay, scissors like that. And then also the split itself, so let's call it split. And in our case, because it's ds train, it's the training split, so you can simply use train in here, train. And why train? Simply because it's also called here in the splits, as you can see here, train. So that is why if you run this info here before and get some information, it's really helpful, because then you know exactly, okay, what kind of split, for instance, what's the name here, even though most of the time probably it's test and train, but sometimes I get datasets which have valid instead of test somehow. I'm not sure, but that is then different, of course, what you need to refer to. But here we say simply the split is equal to the train. Okay. And we do exactly the same for the testing. So let's say ds test is equal to equal to tfds.load in this case, and the name, again, it's exactly the same, is equal to rock. In this case, you can use single quotes or double quotes, doesn't matter. So in this case, let's say single quotes here, rock, paper, scissor, like that. And please make sure that you need to spell it with the S. You need to spell it correctly. As you can see here, it also has an S here. And now the split itself for the test data is, of course, that the split is equal to test. And why test? Because this name test is also defined here in test, right? Okay. So we got those two data sets, and then of course we can run this simply to download the data and store it in this dataset train as well as the dataset test object here. Okay, so let's actually variable. Let's run this. Press the run button, and now you can see that's basically what I meant, right? So you can see you got those progress bars here, which tell you exactly that they download the data here. And if you want to avoid this, if you simply want to run the cell and don't want to show those progress bars, then if we scroll up to the beginning, then you can simply enable this here, right? If you untick this hash symbol and at the beginning you specify tfds.disable progress bar, then you should not see those progress bars in here when you download the data, like those, right? So if that's not an issue for you, then of course simply, as I said, simply you don't need to specify this disabling. Just if you want to do that, you can do that. Okay, and okay, so let's actually take a look and we got our data. Let's say dstrain. The dstrain, just to refer that the data actually is there. So dstrain, and let's say, and we got the data set v1 adapter, the shapes, labels, and so on. Okay, so dstrain is available. Let's also type a look dstest, just to make sure that the data is also there. Let's run this, and you can also see the dataset v1 adapter, shapes, and so on. So obviously that also worked, and we got all our data downloaded here. Okay, so the data is available, and we can use this data now. So one last thing I like to do in this video is simply take a look at some of the images which are in there, right? Because so far we talked about the rock, paper, scissors, but we have not seen any data here, right? And that is why we can simply run this by simply specifying that the figure, for instance, figure is equal to, and then we can simply say tfds dot, and now show examples. Show examples, here it is. And now we need to specify a few things. As you can see here, it needs a ds info, a ds, rows, columns, and so on. So you can see they already got default parameters, so it's not necessary to do something here. But we need to define the ds info, that's important, and also the ds. So the ds refers to the dataset. That is why we can refer to the ds train here, for instance. And the ds info, as the name implies, info needs our info here, right? So what we did here. So basically this builder.info, which we specified here. We said the builder is this dataset, and the information about the builder we stored in the info variable, and that is why we can simply type in here info. Of course, if you named this differently up there, right? Where is it? Up there. If you use the different, for instance, call it information, or you call it somewhere banana, whatever you want to call it, then of course you need to refer here to the same variable name. Now info. And then the next thing is that you simply type in dstrain, okay? Make sure you spell it correctly, as well as the data you stored in here, okay? Like that. And if you do this, we can run this, just to take a look at the data set itself, just to print a few images, and here we go, okay? So these are the images. As you can see here, we got the scissors, we got scissors here, this should be a rock, then this is a paper, this is a rock, paper, scissor, and so on. And you can clearly see that this data, of course, does not look too human, at least I don't know, maybe it is human, actually, I'm not sure, or it's generated, but some of them, at least to me, look like they are generated, but that's basically what the dataset looks like, okay? So scissors, you got scissors in the dataset, they look like that, you got the rocks, they look like that, and all like that, and also some papers which look like that, all that. Okay, so that's helpful just if you want to visualize a little bit about the dataset, because if you only know the dataset name and you don't know actually what the image looks like, it's a little bit hard. So that's why I always recommend that you simply start at first plotting this dataset, so you get a little bit more information. Also show this information maybe to your audience. Okay, so that's that for basically plotting the data. And in the next thing we want to do is we want to do additional data preparation, but this is something we cover in the next video. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching, and I can't wait to see you there.